Yeah, hello and welcome everybody to this talk, how to write technical documentation that actually works. And as you all might be aware, a key factor for technical documentation that it is easy to understand and easy to process. And this is not only true for us human beings, because we write, of course, technical documentation for a global audience, but it's also important, of course, with regards to the future and AI and chatbots processing our documentation. And this is why we give this talk today. And yeah, my name is Tanja Roth. I'm the project manager for the documentation of Business Critical Linux for BCL. And I have been working, I think, as a tech writer for more than 20 years in various industries, starting with mechanical engineering, then going to medical technology, and from there to IT. And I'm with SUSE since 2005, I believe. And I'm happy that Daria is with me here today.
Hello, my name is Daria, and I can't boast working as long at SUSE, and I'm not a technical writer so far. I'm doing editing services for the documentation team, and I'm really happy to do that. And I've been with the company for 2.5 years.
Okay. Yeah, today's agenda is that we want to introduce you quickly to the purpose of technical writing. Then, of course, we could talk about best practices on how to do it best for hours and hours, but we want to focus in the interest of time on 3 basic principles that we want to talk about today. And then the core of this talk is an example text that we have brought to you, which we will analyze together, and also Daria and me will present you a revised vision of the text, and we'll just look at it side by side and compare the 2 versions. And then, of course, we would like to wrap it up in the end, provide a short summary. And of course, if you are interested to know more, we have also some resources for you that we can point you to. Okay, maybe to set the expectations, maybe you have been writing technical documentation already, and if so, or if you have been working a lot with technical documentation, we would be interested in maybe 1 or 2 things. If you want to name something, what the challenges were that you either faced while writing or while working with documentation. So,
yeah, the first point we want to make is the purpose of technical writing. So what's the purpose? Just really briefly, technical writing is often defined as simplifying the complex. So why is that? Indeed, it really differs from any other type of writing, be it fiction or blogging or scientific literature, and it differs in certain definite ways. This is writing about a specific subject for a specific purpose and to a specific audience, and the main purpose is, we already mentioned, is conveying complex information in a simple way. This means that technical documentation must be clear, precise, and straightforward. And usually we can define 2 common problems that may occur with technical documentation. First is when the authors believe and assume that the reader may have the same background and knowledge as they do, and this is very often not the case. And second problem is when it derives from the first one, is that the documentation is not explanatory enough, at least for the user and the reader. And what we want to stress is that technical documentation isn't just meant for product developers. They don't write it only for themselves. There are a lot of different stakeholders at different layers of a company. Any company that deals in IT, electronics, medicine, science, and a lot of other fields, a lot of stakeholders rely on technical documentation in their everyday work. And this includes engineers who develop the product. This includes marketers who promote this product. This includes end consumers to end up using this product. So at the end of the day, the purpose of technical documentation is just to make life simpler for every reader reading it and provide readers with simple and easily accessible information. And now I would like to move on to the 3 basic principles that we have defined for you today, and Tanya will pick up the first one, the perspective.
Okay, yeah, thanks. So for me, that's really the most important thing, because as some of you already stated, or we already stated, if you are probably an engineer or a developer, of course, you have a very broad and very detailed knowledge of the topic that you are working on. And for example, if you look at this example here, it's from the motor car industry. Imagine you have developed this beautiful Jaguar engine over there, and of course, it's completely natural that you are proud and want to describe the engine in all its gory details, how all the components fit together, work together, every connection that there is. But at the end of the day, that's your perspective at the moment as a developer. But what we need to do if we want to transform this knowledge into technical documentation is, and especially if we are engineers or developers, we need to step out of our own shoes and really step into the customer's shoes. Because at the end of the day, if you have a car engine, somebody wants to drive that car. So they probably, your customers or our customers and readers, are interested in, how do I drive this thing? How to switch on the light, for example. Just daily little routines that you need. Or you would like to know about some maintenance work here, saying, hey, I need to change the tires every now and then, or I need to refill oil regularly, and how am I going to do this? So also here it helps us, if we change perspective, to really think about our readers' goals. What are the problems they want to solve with our products or solutions? And for structuring, it absolutely helps us to think about the tasks they need to do with our products and solutions in the daily work. As I said here, switching on lights, doing some maintenance work. And this is what it is about. And for me, it's the first and the most important step. Yeah, and I'm handing over to Daria for the next one.
Yeah, so now a couple of points about writing itself. And first is about organizing information and organizing it in a smart way so that it's easily findable and understandable. So one of the most prominent characteristics of technical writing is probably it's being really very structured. And the best technical documentation is structured in a way that it helps users to find the solutions to their problems real quick. And in the end, every technical document is meant to solve a problem. So organizing the content in a smart way is key to keeping our readers' attention. And here are some hopefully useful hints that we have made and we want to share. And first is the so-called inverted pyramid style. You can see this inverted pyramid there in the picture with its tip downwards and the broader part upwards. So the way that people search for information and the way they perceive this information is changing really rapidly as technology develops. So we want our readers to read the most crucial details really quickly. And for that, the inverted pyramid style is very good. So the article should be structured in a way that the most important information comes first, and then you gradually move on to less significant information. Here, what is good is that the reader understands the main idea really from the first line at first glance, and they can quickly determine if they want to keep reading or not. And if they do, they get more information in the body and tail of the text, and if they don't, then they still remain with the main idea. So to sum it up, in the beginning of your article, always use an outcome statement. This is a statement that tells readers what they will accomplish after reading your article. The second rule is using the so-called topic types, and this approach has proven itself optimal for technical documentation because it relies on principle of chunking information into logical parts that are called topics. That's why it's also called topical writing. Indeed, the logic of our subject matter itself tells us to use this optimal structure. So the typical structure would be defining what you're talking about, what you want to share with your readers about in a concept. This is the so-called concept topic. This one is followed by the task topic, where you describe how you use it or how the solution or service works. And this usually includes a procedure with step-by-step instructions. And this is really the most sought-after piece within any technical documentation that is usually searched by readers. Then we provide additional information, examples, and everything else that we would like to share in the reference. And the optional glue topic can finalize the text, and it's usually called something like what's new or for more information, and it contains additional references to different documents probably, or just a transition to another chapter. The third rule, with the little bullet points, it's about explicit paragraph structure. This simply means a clear paragraph structure. So we recommend building each paragraph on one main sentence that contains a key point. This is why usually readers run through each paragraph and read the first sentence of this paragraph to then determine whether they want to continue reading. And by just presenting the key idea in the very first sentence, you help readers to determine this and save them time. So the next point builds up on this first one. It's again the structure of a paragraph as well. So the structure that we recommend should be the topic sentence that contains the main idea, which is then developed with more details, parameters, whatever we want to share, and contains the conclusion or transition to the next paragraph. Limited paragraph length and limited number of paragraphs are pretty self-explanatory, so we recommend to use between 3 and 5 sentences in each paragraph, so not to make the flow of text really very bulky, and not to use more than 5 to 6 sequential paragraphs in a topic. So if there are more, it can be split into subsections or into 2 different sections, just for better readability. Okay, then let's move on to the writing itself. This is going to be about language and style that we recommend in technical writing, and it's based on the good old KISS rule, which says keep it simple and clear. And by saying keep it simple, we mean the language. When writing, we recommend to always keep in mind the phrase plain English. This simply means that we want the users understand what we say the first time they read it. And here I'd like to focus on 4 points, splitting information into smaller chunks again, using active voice, using simple verb tenses and using short sentences, and sticking to understandable language. So first, splitting information into smaller chunks. We have already talked about this, but the repetition is mother of skill. So it's very beneficial for the reader and for the text and for searchability of this text in search engines to break it into smaller chunks, into logical sections, because they make writing clearer, and to use headings and subheadings that would contain some keywords that you also mention in your writing and that help organize it better. And also using some lists. Can we switch on to the next slide?
Sorry.
Yeah, and then using lists and for presenting, for example, step-by-step instructions. This also helps readability. So in this example, we show how we turn the sentence that looks pretty long and hard to read into a procedure, with the correct order of steps that the user may want to take. Well, at first glance, it looks that this is now longer than the original one, but in the end, it's better readable, and it also contains a note, which is also makes some key point conspicuous, and there can be also a warning for the user to have something prepared in order to take this further steps. Okay. Next point is using active voice. So yeah, we all know that it works for almost all forms of writing, that active verbs make text more direct and easier to read, and passive constructions can make sentences more confusing and just simply longer. So here, if we compare, the zip file should be downloaded. We can just say download the zip file. It's especially valid for instructions. And here, as you can see, we have used the imperative voice, the imperative mood. Imperative is very often used in instructions in this task and procedures. But there is also a reservation that needs to be made here, and this is one of the peculiarities of technical writing, probably, that passive voice is also can also be used in technical documentation, and there are two use cases for this. First is when we deal with some error messaging or troubleshooting. So if we use the active voice, like here, if the build fails, you probably missed a bug. Sounds like you're blaming the user for it. And in this case, it's much more appropriate to use the passive. If the build fails, a bug could have been missed, and it's more lenient, it's not accusing anyone. And the second use case is when you concentrate on the object of the action, or the one who performs the action is not known or is not important. So to emphasize the object of the action being taken, so the server must be configured in the network. We don't really care about who does this, but we now concentrate on the server. Next point, please. This is simple verb tenses and short sentences. So for short sentences, we made it a point because technical documentation is known for being really long, especially when there are some product names involved, and this is why in the ideal world we try to stick to 15 to 20 words at the maximum in a sentence to just make it again better readable. And as for simple verb tenses, we recommend sticking to just simple past, simple present, and simple future, and to avoid any other verb tense variations unless you really want to concentrate on the sequence of some events. So here are two examples when the sentences were simplified by chopping up some words. So after you have installed the program at the hosts you want to back up, nothing will change, and the readers would probably benefit from a shorter sentence if you just use simple present after you install the program at the hosts. And also, we recommend avoiding future tense where it is possible, because we don't always want to offer some future features. So we try to avoid using future tense. So after you do this, the program will send you a response. Again, the meaning and the essence of this instruction is not changing if you just use simple present. The program sends you a response. And we save some space. Okay, and now I guess this is going to be the final point in writing section. So it's understandable language. We don't want to overcomplicate our writing because it is complex as it is, and it involves a lot of technical terms. So if you use technical terms and introduce them, they should be used consistently. This is a pain point sometimes, so they should be used consistently throughout the whole text. And if you use abbreviations or acronyms, please also explain them. Try to avoid meaningless words that also occupy a lot of space and bear no significance for the subject matter, some such as relatively or respectively or correspondent, just getting rid of them. And the same goes for introductory phrases, such as described earlier in this guide. If you chop it off, no one will even notice. And also we recommend avoiding pretentious words. Those could be acceptable in some legal speech, and they're preferred there for the purpose of, in order to, so as to, this conjunctions and prepositions can be just safely rephrased with to do this. instead of in order to do that. Yeah, so I guess that was it for the structure and language. I hope I didn't take that much time. Well, then now we would like to go through an example with you and with Tanya.
Yeah, and maybe before I show the text, let me tell you that it is based on a real-world example. But to do it really some justice, Daria and me really slightly modified the original text because just for the sake of proving or demonstrating some more points here. And let me show you the example text. And by the way, if you want to go through the exercise and want to read it and modify it yourself after this session or any time you want to do it, there's an Etherpad link. You can go there, copy and paste the text to your own text editor and then try it out if you want. It's just an offer, not meant to be a mandatory exercise here. Yeah, let's have a quick look together and maybe one or two things already. You maybe spot one or two things at first glance about this text, even if you don't, without reading the complete text. And if something comes to your mind, please speak up, yes?
Number at least.
The number?
The number at least that is not usually maybe some
For the
procedure can be
For the steps, you mean? Yeah. So you pointed out correctly there is no ordered number of steps. That's good observation, thanks. Anything else that really jumps at you? And if not, not a problem. Let's move on. And now let me take a look here. So, yeah, maybe before analyzing what does not work in the text, let's have first a look at what actually works in the text, because looking at it, we think that some of the things are really okay. For example, the very first paragraph, at this stage you have branched and checked out the package, plus the sentence that comes after it. This is for me one of the positive aspects here, because it provides a status quo. And maybe I should say, just for the big picture, it's about doing something with the open build service, just for the overall picture. And this is just a snippet of what to do. But what I like about the first paragraph is that it gives some orientation to the reader. You are here at this point, you have branched something and checked out the package. And why is this important? Because nowadays, with the search engine, nearly all of our readers arrive at our documentation via search engines. And this means they will basically jump in your text at any point. So this is why it is even more important to provide some orientation to the readers that just arrived at this snippet, just as we do now, to say, where are we in the overall thing? Then what is also positive about the original text, that at least some results are listed in between. For example, it says at the very bottom, let me highlight it here, that what the command will do. It will apply the patches in the order specified in the series file. So this is at least a result for one of those steps. And here, once again, if you provide a result after steps, it gives your readers the orientation, because if after executing the step they don't arrive at the same result, or if they arrive, they know, I did it right, they can proceed with the next steps. And if not, they might be thinking, oh, maybe something went wrong. So it's a very important means of orientation. What I also like about this text, or what we find is good, is the very last sentence: you are now prepared to add your own patch. So this is like the overall summary of whatever we have been doing here, saying this is the bridge to the next topic already, saying we have done this and that, and now we are ready to prepare our own patch. So this is a glue, and once again a means of orientation between one topic and the next topic. What's also good is that the commands, for example, are at least typed in bold, and also the name of the files, like the spec files, you know, those are some kind of names. So this is what I think that sums up the things that we think that work in this text. Any questions so far? No, then let's move on to the slightly longer list, and I will show the 2 slides in the summary in a minute. As you may have guessed, what jumped really at me is when I looked at this text at the very first time, it's just a continuous blob of, it's a blob of continuous text. There are not many headlines in between. As you said, there are no ordered steps. Do this first, second, third, something. It's all lacking here. And then for me also the section title, setup, that's not meaningful enough, because what are we setting up here? Nobody knows at this point. And if the readers arrive at this title, they might still be clueless, because as I said, most of our readers arrive via search engines. So we would modify that. Then in the second paragraph, oops, sorry, I didn't want to step back, I just wanted to show you. The second paragraph here, it's for me, it's a mixture of 2 topic types. For example, the first sentences describe the concept, what is contained in the tar archive, and so on and so forth. But this sentence here, extract the source files from the tar archive, that's already part of the next task, so it doesn't belong to the concept anymore. So I would split this paragraph and put the task information to the real steps that follow afterwards. And yeah, so it's not clearly visible what's the concept and what's the concrete actions the users need to take. Then the next thing is, there is, at least to us, some superfluous and even confusing information. It is over here after we have executed a command. It says, it talks about a different command, and this is kind of just leading away from the topic and distracting. I mean, it might be useful information, but definitely not at this point. So we would just remove this information. Then what you also might see is there are commands, but there's not one example of what the shell returns. And once again, here that's something, as a result, it's often helpful to return the expected output of the shell, because then your readers know, I see a similar output, so I'm on the right track. It's really a means of orientation, and it's completely missing here, unfortunately. Then the last 2 things to point out that need work from our perspective is the language. It's not always very clear. For example, we have future tense here, will apply, so we could simplify it to apply. And also there are this superfluous confusing information that we would remove. And then we have some modifiers here, for example, let me find them. Before, and you notice this is at the very end of the sentence. So if I have a modifier like before doing this and that, first back up something, for example, I would put this before in the very first place in the sentence, because it helps to understand the sentence structure much more easily. And also here we have a condition. If you have a condition, I would also put it first in the step or in the sentence, because if that condition does not apply to your reader for some reason, they can safely skip this step and move on to the next one. So also here it's very small things that could be made better. just a summary of what we have been through. As I said, there are definitely things that work in this text, but unfortunately the list that doesn't work is much longer here. And now let's look at the two texts. So side by side, on the left you have the original text. On the right you have a text how Daria and me would rewrite it. But please let me highlight, there is not just one solution. This is how we would do it, and maybe if you want to go through the exercise and do it yourself, you would arrive at a slightly different revised version, and that is also okay. It's not just one solution here. This is really, our example is just, it's just an example how we would do it. You might do it a little bit different. But let me try to sum up what we did, if you look at it right now. For example, we changed the title to a hopefully more meaningful one, saying preparing your patch. I mean, this still doesn't convey all the information, but this is also for a reason. If you keep titles very long, they will also be hard to parse and read. And usually you have a table of contents or some breadcrumb structure in your article displaying the sections before and the sections after, so there is, apart from the title, some more context that you would have. Then, for the first paragraph, we didn't change anything. As I said, it's we found it's mostly okay as it is. It gives the setting and says we are at this point. Then for the second paragraph, as I said before, this was the one with the mixed types, the conceptual information in the beginning, and then one sentence that rather belongs to the next task. So that's why we removed this sentence and put it here right in front of the task. I mean, in that case, the task is not that long. You probably wouldn't even need this introductory sentence. But if you have a task with like 10 steps, it's still a good idea to sum up what's going to happen here. And then I think the most prominent thing that we did is that we split up the information that was already in the original text, saying you need to take this and those steps. We really tried to split it up into separate steps here. So we have number 1, unpack the packages tar archive. Then we have the command that was also there in the original example. And as I said, what is still missing here is an example output for what the shell returns. That would be nice to have, but it wasn't conveyed in the original text, so we also skipped it here. Then we formulated a result, what this very command does, and we put it right below this step. And then the next thing I said, you remember I talked about the modifiers and condition. There was this little word if, because there are also packages that don't contain patches. So this is why the second step only applies in the case that the package contains patches. And we put it as a second step here, change to the source directory, and there I just made up an example of what the command probably would be. And then as a third step is apply the patches, and also there the original command was somewhere in the text over there, but we put it here right behind the step on a separate line. Although one must say those two steps here, you could also phrase them as step 2a and step 2b, because it belongs to the same thing, actually. As I said, there's not just one solution. But I think what's really clear is that we split it up into concrete steps with a result for each step, a command, for each step plus a result. And then we provided also here, that was there in the original sentence, but we also put it into a passive voice here, as Daria explained before, because it's a result. The patches are applied in the order. It's done automatically, so we don't need to highlight an actor here at this point. And then we left the transition to the next topic. You are now prepared to add your own patch. So that's the glue topic to the next thing. Any questions here? Yeah, maybe let me repeat the question. The question was, how do we make sure that everything is correct? Do we proofread if we get contributions from outside? Do we try it ourselves? Yes, that's what we usually do. If we have a chance, even if we write it on our own, we usually try it if somehow possible. And if you would provide a pull request, for example, or also an information in Baxilla saying, hey, this command is wrong, please change it or split it up into those steps, we would make sure to consult a subject matter expert. If we don't know, we know who in the company knows, and then we make sure it's properly reviewed before it's merged into the documentation. Yes, also for changes from internal engineers. So usually they would also provide a pull request, and then we have from the team somebody, usually the one who's working on this topic, because Mike has said it before, we have a lot of writers, but we have assigned them, or they have self-assigned them to certain topics or certain guides, and they would have a look at it. And Daria, of course, as an editor, always also does a language and a style check in the end. Okay, any more questions at this point? No, if not, then let's move on to the summary already. So just to highlight what we did in this example, how to revise the text. One thing we did, we talked about it first as one of the basic principles, is we changed the perspective. For example, focusing on the reader's goals, we changed the title. Not just set up, but now preparing your patch. That's a real task that someone wants to do in the build service. And belonging to this perspective is sometimes also to remove information that is not relevant to the target audience or the reader. Because as we said before, if you are an engineer, you have a really broad perspective with all details, but sometimes those details are not relevant for the end user or customer, whoever reads this documentation. And sometimes, and this is, I must admit, the most hard part, is to get rid of some of the information and really remove it for the sake of focusing on the target audience and on their goals. Then on an organizational perspective, how we structured the text, we try to separate the topic types more clearly. For example, putting the concept information first and then only then move on to the task. Having the task with a number of listed ordered steps. Having the commands on a separate line, and maybe what I should highlight here is that it serves two purposes actually, because one is written here, you can just copy and paste the command much more easily if you do it that way. And another reason is if you have very experienced readers who are already experts in their fields, they don't need the step description as such. They would just need to know the order of commands, and then they can just scan the text for the commands, find them, and then they think, yeah, okay, that's the order in which I need to execute the command. So you can help to also make the text usable for more advanced readers in that way, because they can just skim through the text and select the information they need at this point in time. Then with regards to keeping it simple and clear, we try to make, and you notice probably that our version of the text is really slightly longer, but we try to still highlight the relevant information to make it more visible with the steps. providing commands, providing results per step or for the overall procedure. We also had shorter sentences, shorter paragraphs, and where possible, we tried to get rid of this future tense and use just a simple tense. Will create, we transformed it to create. And also we used, that was also present in the original text. All the instructions were given in active voice. The only thing we changed is that for one result we used also passive voice because, as we said, for results, this is totally fine even in technical documentation. But if you want your readers to do something, of course you would address them directly by saying, execute this, and not this command must be executed. Okay, I think that's it from our side. Now we are opening up for questions. Yeah, and maybe let me hand the microphone to you, if that's okay. And I don't need to repeat the question. Thank you.
I was just curious what tools you use internally or what you recommend. One of the issues that I come across often is, some of technical documents are in Microsoft Word, some are in Excel, some are in Teams, some are in the web, and it's like, and then you have multiple versions. So do you have recommendations of how to, are using the same type of things for that a coder would use, like a GitHub or CSS or something like that?
Yeah, so thank you. We are using GitHub in most cases, so we are definitely using Git and GitHub, so all of the product and solution, or the product documentation really is out there on GitHub. And we use branches to separate for the separate releases, because as you might know, we maintain, for example, for SUSE Linux Enterprise Server, several versions in parallel. So each version, let's say /15 SP5 is on a maintenance branch, /15 SP4 is on a maintenance branch, and that's how we organize it. And yeah, as maybe I'm not sure if some of you were present in the previous talk by Maike, what she said is, of course, if we get contributions, it doesn't need to be in GitHub or in the source formats we use. We are happy for every contribution. So you can also send us an email, send us a Word document, but of course, in our case, we would transform it into DocBook XML or ASCII doc and definitely use GitHub as a versioning and tracking system. Definitely. Thanks. More questions? Yes, please. It's still on. No, I think you.
Me? Okay,
yeah.
thank you. So, sorry. In my company, we are a service provider, managed service provider, and we have several customers, near 400 or similar. And we have a problem. We have GitHub, we have SharePoint, we have Teams, we have 2 or 3 intern wiki.
Mm-hmm.
The SharePoint is the main documents bucket in our company, but nowadays is full, is redundant of information, so we need to storage to storage in procedure for every customer. And my problem is which type of how do you say in English? Which type of tags you use to make a good index in your documentation. So, for example, we use customer name, type of procedure, and what action you need to do. But in some case, it's not enough. So, what can you use what tag can you use to keep track of your documentation, of your procedure in your system? Because this is the most important things to keep or to keep clear. That's all.
Yeah. So thank you. The thing is, so you are also talking about customer-facing documentation in the end, or are you talking about internal documentation? Not only, okay. Because also in our company, of course, we have a lot of internal documentation, and as you might imagine, it's also stored in different places. And yeah, with regards to how to systemize it, I'm not sure I can give a good recommendation here. You maybe really have to talk to all the stakeholders and find a way. If you kind of organize it using a methodology or certain keywords, that might help you. What we do internally, it's not that we often have to write specific information for specific customers. We have that as well. Internally, we use a different tracking version. For example, we use Jira to track all the features and also the documentation tasks around it. But I think your question is more how to organize it within the system that you are using. And there, I can't give a good recommendation. I'm sorry. I think you have to find your own way, talking to your colleagues and customers, what you need, and then how we did it now for the doc portal that Frank will be talking about at 4 o'clock, to find some way of systematically add either metadata or to track it somehow in the titles. And yeah, Maike.
There are two solutions.
Yeah.
Standardize
Yes,
or implement it with search.
exactly. That would be the good answer here. But how you do it, it's really up to you. Yeah. Any more questions? Yeah, please go ahead.
Hi. Have you considered using the OpenAI tools to create a mechanism for formatting the documents, utilize a pipeline flow method to generate and complete the document process?
Yeah, maybe we are using AI, so there are now there are efforts to, of course, introduce chatbots, for example, and we are working on this. But I'm sorry, I forgot the second part of your question.
You utilize your pipeline flow. Maybe you can generate the document and to pipeline to the LangChain or anywhere the generator OpenAI, and then can to format your speech, format your content,
Mm-hmm.
to give you a more recommendation for your test.
So it's how to format the stuff in the end. I'm not sure, Frank, are you aware of anything that we use at the moment?
The problem is all stuff. It's bringing stuff together rather than inventing some new content.
Maybe for the sake of the recording, because I forgot to hand the microphone to Frank, let me sum up. So the thing is that for using AI, there's still the unclear question with regards to copyright thing. So as long as this is not clarified, we won't use it to just copy and paste something from an AI or from a chatbot. And the other thing that Frank mentioned is that we are currently doing a proof of concept where we fed a solution with our documentation, and also there we can try to bring together documents from separate sources or from several worlds in the end into one portal, but that would also be more an AI-supported search than really using AI. Any more questions? Then let me, how you can contact us. Of course, you can find us at the Technology Showcase. We have a separate kiosk there. Please, if you are here afterwards, come and talk to us. If you have further questions, we are always happy to talk to you. Then, if you find issues in our documentation, you can open a documentation bug in Bugzilla or just drop us an email. As we have said, we are always happy about feedback. If you are thinking of participating in a special type of documentation called SUSE Best Practices that Maike has talked about in the previous talk, for example, please contact her. She's also always happy for contributors here. And then, last but not least, you can also find a SUSE account or partner executive. They know how to find us. And maybe some more resources that you might find useful. Daria, do you want to
just a
say
quick
something
note,
about
yeah,
this?
if this is interesting to someone who really is ready to contribute, we have our own style guide for documentation, for technical documentation, which we maintain. And then there's also the general so-called SUSE Style and Writers Guide mentioned second. And also our team maintains our star project this year, the TermWeb, which is the terminology database that has the official terminology, especially for products and a lot of other interesting and relevant terms that are accepted in our company. So all these resources can be then found in the slides.
Can we just search these terms, or is there a URL that we would need?
Yeah, for the documentation style guide, it's really on documentationsuse.com. If you search for style guide, you will find it there. The writer's guide, I'm not sure, Daria, if it's publicly
The writer's guide
available.
is public. It's on Google Drive, but our style guide is actually hidden in our documentation, so you need a link for it. That's why the link is provided. It's actually embedded.
Yeah.
Google has it on the first result.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Fine, great.
Okay, and there are more talks today. So the next one will be actually our colleague Nuno talking about from code to docs at cloud native speed. But I think we will have a break first of all, and his talk starts at 3 p.m. So thank you for being here
Thank
today,
you.
and happy to talk. Bye bye.